This episode is proudly supported by the new Capital Food Market Canberra, where you can explore the very best producers, artisans, fresh food providores and hospitality venues of the region. Here's Jared Deaton from 3 Mills Bakery.
I think that's the beating heart of the city. You always sort of travel and remember going to, markets and see what the culture's all about. So it was sort of only natural for us to really want to be a part of the new Capital Food Market. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. I think it's an amazing market.
For more information, go to capitalfoodmarket.com.au or visit the markets and feed your curiosity.
To me, it's still amazing to be involved with something that's grown from the ground and it's come from the earth and can be different and change with the seasons or the weather of that particular time and speaking. It just gives you something from where it's from.
This is The Producers. I'm Anthony Huckstep. In 2006, Michelle Morgan and her husband Dean founded Zokoko with a shared vision to create artisan chocolate with natural flavours that showcased their origin, retained their natural flavours and seasonal characteristics. Since then, they've created one of the world's most unique premium chocolates that is truly bean to bar.
I'm Michelle Morgan and I run a bean to bar chocolate factory with my husband, and it's called Zokoko. It's located at Emu Heights at the foot of the Blue Mountains, and we chose to locate here because we don't live far away. We've always wanted to live in the Blue Mountains and raise our kids in this area, but we're still quite close, relatively close to Sydney. My previous life, I was actually an architect. I was a landscape architect. So I, did all the things and studied design. But I always had a love of plants and nature and growing of things. And I think when I think about it now, a lot of the things I learnt before I bring into the business now.
After a trip to explore coffee plantations at their origin, Michelle discovered cocoa and her mind started racing with potential.
Back in, I think, 2004, we were travelling in Central America. My husband was and still is a coffee roaster, so we were in search of green coffee over there, and we just have wanted to go visit some coffee farms. And I said, this was like back before you booked everything on your phone. I had the Lonely Planet guide out and I read about this place in Costa Rica that was a sloth sanctuary. And I said, I really want to go there. So we made our way over on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, and we stayed at the sloth sanctuary. We actually got to touch and hold a sloth, which was just incredible. But it was there that outside the building and just on the side of the road and nearly everywhere you looked, there was cacao growing, just wild, just everywhere. And I was like, wow, look at these pods. And I was breaking them open and getting the seeds out. And I was like, oh, this is the thing that becomes chocolate. How cool is that? And I was just like, this is the thing, you got to roast them, kind of like coffee, but different. And I was just like, you know what? Let's have a chocolate factory. So that was my moment of madness and inspiration, where it all sort of started, not knowing really what lay ahead. But yeah, that's where it began.
Sourcing was just the tip of the iceberg for chocolate production, as Michelle soon discovered.
Oh, I guess it was just really hard slog in terms of finding the equipment that we needed. I actually went overseas to learn about making chocolate because there was nowhere in Australia you could learn about manufacturing chocolate. You could do a chocolatier course and working with chocolate, but it was quite different to actually making it. So it was tracking down equipment that we could put together to make a very small scale chocolate line that wasn't massive industrial equipment that was just out of our world, basically, or it was really old and vintage and whether it would actually work and things like that. So we did get a couple of really amazing pieces. There was a we have a vintage Bath Sirocco roaster that's designed for cacao, and we got that and had that all refurbished and painted, and we have that on display in our factory, and we use it. And then we also got a Mollinger, which I always wanted, a granite stone mill Mollinger. We found one that was in Russia, and it was over 100 years old. It was still in use, so that was cool. And then when I went to do the transfer to pay these people we didn't know for the equipment, our bank said to me, there's only 2 countries in the world where we recommend you never send any money, and Russia is one of them. So, do you want to continue? And I was like, oh no. And I said yes, but freaking out the whole time. But no, they were true to their word, and they sent it over. It was actually 40 millimetres too big to fit inside a container, so it had to come exposed, like out on a rack thing on a ship. And so when it arrived to us, it actually had seawater in it. But we cleaned it all up, and we repainted it, refurbished it, and we have it now, and I call it my 5.5 ton baby.
As Michelle explains, starting a small business is full of bumps in the road, some bigger than others.
Oh, the challenges. There's so many challenges. And it sounds like such a nice idea, and so many people say to me, oh, I'd love to make chocolate. I'm like, oh, really? I mean, it is very rewarding when you actually finish with a product that actually speaks about through the actual natural flavours that are in the bean, and then it comes through, and that's just like a wow moment. And when people say to you, oh, I can't go back to the supermarket stuff because I've tasted your chocolate, I just can't buy anything else anymore. So that's really lovely. But I guess, in the trials and tribulations side of things, at one stage we actually saw that documentary, Willie's Cacao, and we laughed, and then we actually cried, because so many of the painful things that he went through was like, we knew that pain so well. It's difficult when we spoke to like brokers or traders who would actually, say, be bringing coffee beans into Australia and potentially bring cacao in for us. They were like, minimum 2 containers. I'm like, what? No, we just need a couple of bags. So it's like that's a whole sort of another journey of going overseas and making connections with growers, and then being able to work with them longer term to help improve their product, and making sure that, we knew all about where we were sourcing from. So very ethically driven about what we want to do, and knowing all about the people who are involved in our chain. So I guess that was the big challenge, actually. So my husband Dean went to Bolivia. I had to stay home and mind the small kiddies. And sort of built it up slowly that way. And then I guess the triumph would be like a couple of years in, and we did actually win some international awards and local recognition as well. And that was very, I guess, kind of reinforcing of that, we are on the right track.
The chocolate making process has many steps along the way, all vital for the end product. As
I mentioned, we've got to go and work with the growers at origin and really understand their fermentation and drying process, what's happening to the beans, so that we know what they've done to it and the story of the bean. And that's something that changes with each vintage, basically each harvest. And then we have to get that to Australia, import that, and then they arrive in 60 kilo sacks generally, sometimes 30, in like a Grain Pro or Hessian sack. And then from there we whole bean roast. So Dean will roast those, and I feel very strongly that his experience and expertise in roasting coffee, he brings that to the art and craft of roasting cacao. They're different, but there are some similarities as well. And it's the understanding of the bean and the process of what's happening while you're roasting, rather than just cooking something. There's an art and a science to it. So he will roast the beans in the Bath Sirocco roaster. We have that up on the first floor level in our factory, so that once they come out of there, they drop down through a hole in the floor, basically, into the room below, which has the winnower in it. And so the winnower is the machine that will gently crack the beans, and then has a process by which the shell is removed, a separation of the shell, and then crushing them just sort of slightly, so that what comes out of that machine is your cocoa nib. So the small pieces which you're familiar with. From there, we take the nibs and we'll either put them into Molly, my 5.5 ton Mollinger, or we are able to. It's a very slow process, and then if we don't use that, because it's really more of a display, but it's a very lovely display. The beans will go into a initial refiner, so it's a 3-roll refiner, which they just go through for an initial crush, and it comes out of that machine looking kind of like the chocolate bar called Flake. It looks like, does not taste like that. So you can have some fun with people. You go, try this, and it's like, ugh, it's intense. And then from there, we'll take that and put that into one of our refiners. We have a 45 kilo refiner and a 500 kilo refiner. And then we'll add, once it's in there, it's like a universal refiner, which has how to explain it? It's kind of like a cylinder that has then a core of metal bars that scrape around and apply pressure to the product, and then that reduces the particle size. And by doing that, you're going to get a nice smooth chocolate. Also at this stage is the conching process, so we'll be adjusting the fan, so we're removing air across the product as well, so that actually removes some of the volatiles at that stage. We'll add in our organic sugar and then extra organic cocoa butter that we need to get the viscosity that we're looking for. And from there, it'll come out of that machine and then go into a holding tank, and then from there pumped into a tempering unit, and then from there into a moulding line, which will then deposit the chocolate into the moulds that we've polished by hand, and then goes through, and then they have to go into a cooling tunnel, which it's kind of in a vertical shape though. It's sort of like a giant fridge, I guess you'd say. And they go into there, and then when they come out, we demold them, and then we wrap them and pack them into their envelopes and apply the stickers by hand and have then finally a finished product. So that can be like from a 3 to 5 day process, depending on how long we want to conch for. And then just if it's a really big batch, obviously it's going to take longer to do any of those steps, particularly like then the moulding and then the packing. That's just quite labour intensive, so it takes longer as well.
Michelle's commitment has resulted in small batch, unique, premium chocolate.
First and foremost, probably the biggest thing is perhaps the cocoa content that you'll see in chocolate, and compared to, say, supermarket or commercial, like industrial type chocolate, often have some additives that may have other things in it to help it run fast, like melt and behave in a different way. And then just in terms of anything extra going in, we source everything that we can locally. So if we have inclusions, we'll be using things that are Australian everywhere we can. So I think overall it's just probably also a time thing. We're not doing those big industrial chocolate manufacturers will be like doing tons per hour, and for us, we'll take 45 kilos, could take a couple of days to go from go to woe. So it's just a totally different scale. And I guess it's just coming back to thinking about, okay, what's a real, I guess perhaps the way, that's sort of like, how was cheese used to be made, and going back to an authentic and almost like a slow food approach to doing something, as opposed to something that's highly industrialized and processed and pushed through for a time pressure and things like that. So it's just very different. And what I'm looking for is to highlight, showcase the flavours that are naturally in the beans. And as I mentioned, that can change slightly from year to year, even if you're buying them from the same farms. And I actually want to celebrate that, whereas I think industrial type chocolate is very flattened out in the flavour profile, and they're looking to make the same chocolate year in, year out. So that would be, one of the big differences.
Like all small food artisans, Michelle started small, but Zokoko is now available Australia-wide.
A lot of the product goes to, say, hotels and serves like fairly sort of premium, like Qualia at Hamilton Island, and a number of hotels in Sydney, and then to gourmet stores, cafes. We do a drinking chocolate range, so we sell a lot of that to a number of cafes. We also have a select number of products in a small number of Woolworths stores. They've introduced a sort of an up category and asked us to be part of that, and that's only happened in the last 12 months, so it's quite new to us. So there's a range of places.
Because her chocolate epitomises the origin and season, every chocolate in her range is so different.
I guess first I'd like to say, are you a dark chocolate person or a milk chocolate person? If you're a dark chocolate person, I would say try this, and it'll be probably the Tranquilidad bean from Bolivia. It's a very special bean in terms of, it's actually where it grows. It's the plants are growing on very small, it's like a marshland type area, and there's little areas of land just popping up above the waterline, and it'll be on those sort of small islands that the plants are naturally growing, and they're very much smaller than a normal cacao tree, which then means the pods are smaller and then the beans are smaller. So they're actually quite hard to work with from a chocolate maker's point of view, but it's so worth it. They're just full of intense, like deep raisin notes and like plum pudding fruit notes with a little bit of red berry, and it's just, so much going on. And then it's sort of, for me, it's like when you have that fresh chocolate, it's sort of really dancing in your mouth. And then chocolate actually changes and ages over time, like wine. And it's not a good or bad, it's just, it'll be different. And often, like when we've just made chocolate, it's too fresh, like it's too much. There's so much going on, and it's a little bit overpowering because most people are used to, as industrial type chocolate that's very flat and, as I said, sort of the same all the time and doesn't have a lot of that intense city going on. So it can be quite challenging, but I find then after a couple of weeks the chocolate like kind of settles down and it melds, the flavours start to meld together, and it just becomes this amazing experience if you slow down and just taste it really slowly, because also we generally eat chocolate just by scoffing it and not really thinking about it too much. But if you take the time and slow right down and just take a small piece and savour it, it's a very different experience. That's the way I'd be describing my chocolate.
After building an incredible brand of chocolate, it's now the collaborations with like-minded food artisans that's become a focus for Michelle.
Oh, what's next? Yeah, it always feels like there's something next. We've done some fun collaborations. We've just done a Christmas bar with Pepe Saya. So we've incorporated some browned butter into a milk chocolate bar, added toasted slivered almonds and candied orange soaked in rum, and the raisins soaked in rum. It's just like, and it's actually all the flavours of a panettone, like the Christmas cake, Italian cake. So that's our special for Christmas. And I think going forward, more collaborations with other people who are, loving their product and their food the way we do. And then just kind of reinventing and refreshing our range is on the horizon for next year as well.
Michelle's journey from bean to bar has unlocked a drive and enthusiasm for excellence that truly honours the bean.
You don't realise what it's going to be like until you're actually doing it. And once you're doing it, like, oh, wow, this is what I'm doing. and then at the same time realising, I'm a small business owner, and it's you've got all these other hats on as well and trying to juggle everything. You sort of, once you're in it, you realise, okay. But to me, it's still amazing to be involved with something that's grown from the ground and it's come from the earth and can be different and change with the seasons or the weather of that particular time, and speaking, it just gives you something from where it's from. And I think that's what's really beautiful about it to me, and that it's sort of, it tells a story from where it was grown, the people who picked it and then looked after it and fermented it and dried it, and then sent it to us, and then we're trying to care for it and with the same level of respect and looking after it, and to actually showcase and go, look, this is the best this bean can be, and we're trying to really honour the bean, I guess.
The journey of Zokoko is an extraordinary one, but Michelle's commitment to the origin and the very best techniques has resulted in one of the world's best chocolates. This is The Producers, a Deep in the Weeds production. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of producers, farmers, makers, and growers, the true lifeblood of the food industry. Follow us on Instagram at Producers Podcast, or email us at producerspodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au.